It's 2025, and there's this strange hum of anxiety in the air, right? A feeling that something's off. It's more than just the scary headlines, the wars, or the planet seemingly going haywire. This feels deeper. Like whispers from old history books and murmurs from today's mystics, all zeroing in on this one year. What if some of the world's most famous seers, people from totally different times and places, all pointed to 2025 as a year of massive, terrifying change? And what if their visions are actually starting to freak everyone out on a global scale? Welcome. We're diving into something that's got millions talking, the chilling 2025. Prophecies from 4 very well-known seers. We're talking about Baba Vanga, often called the Balkan Nostradamus, the mysterious Nostradamus himself, and 2 modern-day oracles, Athos Salomé and Nicolas Aujula. Their names are now tied to some pretty dire predictions for this year. Predictions about devastating wars, earth-shattering natural disasters, and social chaos that's almost too big to imagine. So what's the result? A growing wave of anxiety across the globe, a media storm, and a massive worldwide debate. Are these real warnings from some other dimension? Or just clever readings of the worries we already have? Maybe it's something else entirely. This isn't just about chasing sensational stories. It's about trying to get a handle on a cultural moment, a time when old fears are crashing into modern anxieties, and we're all trying to figure out what to make of the unknown. We'll look into their supposed shared visions of war and disaster and ask the tough question: is the world right to be panicking? Is doom really a done deal? Or are we just seeing a complicated mix of prediction, psychology, and the power of suggestion playing out on a global stage? As we explore all this, it's really important to keep a critical mind. Prophecies are often wrapped in vague language, open to all sorts of interpretations. And a lot of the time, claims of accuracy only pop up after things have already happened. We're going to try and walk that line between the fascinating mystery of these figures and the hard facts, or lack of them, behind what they say about 2025. This is a pretty electrifying look, not just at the prophecies themselves, but at the panic they're kicking up, and why, in 2025, the world is suddenly all ears. The world on edge, setting the stage for panic. To really get why these 2025 prophecies are hitting so hard, we first need to look at the world they've landed in. Let's be honest, the early 2020s have been a non-stop roller coaster of instability. We've lived through a global pandemic that turned society upside down, seen major wars break out, and we're all trying to deal with a climate crisis that's causing extreme weather everywhere. Economies feel shaky, and many countries are deeply divided politically. Trust in the old institutions? That seems to be fading for a lot of people. This constant feeling of chaos makes us anxious. And when things feel uncertain, it's only human to look for answers, for patterns, for warnings, or even, for some, a sense that things are meant to be. Prophecies, especially the scary ones, can offer a weird kind of comfort, the illusion of knowing what's coming, even if that knowledge is terrifying. With current global tensions, like the ongoing war in Ukraine and other conflicts, the idea of a new world war doesn't feel so abstract anymore, does it? It feels disturbingly possible. We see headlines every day about cyber attacks, AI getting almost too smart for our own good, and scientists giving stark warnings about the environment. These aren't made-up stories. They're the realities shaping how we see the world. And into this tense atmosphere step the seers. Their predictions for 2025 aren't just coming out of nowhere. They tap into fears we already have, offering a way, however speculative, to make sense of the turbulence. These prophecies amplify our existing worries about war, technology running wild, and climate disasters, acting like a lens through which we interpret what's happening. This global panic isn't just because of these seers. It's a symptom of a world that's already on edge, a world desperate for meaning and a peek at what's next. The media, of course, plays a big part, often highlighting the seers' supposed past correct predictions, which can make their current, scarier warnings seem more credible, adding more fuel to public concern. This backdrop of unease is so important. It explains not just why these prophecies are being made, or why they're so gloomy, but why so many of us are paying attention. The stage was perfectly set for an audience ready to listen, and maybe ready to panic. The Balkan Oracle, Baba Vanga's chilling visions for 2025. Vangelia Pandeva Gustarova, who most of us know as Baba Vanga, the blind Bulgarian mystic, has become a global sensation. People often call her the Nostradamus of the Balkans. Even though she died back in 1996, her words keep echoing, with followers and a whole lot of media outlets linking her to a bunch of dramatic predictions, especially for 2025. And the claims about Baba Vanga for 2025, they're pretty startling. It's widely said that she foresaw a massive military conflict exploding in Europe this year, something she apparently described as the start of humanity's downfall, leading to massive depopulation. Along with that, she's also said to have predicted severe earthquakes tied to climate change. Some supporters are even pointing to tremors in places like Myanmar and Thailand in 2025 as early signs of these visions. One report even claimed her earthquake prediction for 2025 came true with those events. But here's the thing, and it's a big one. Where do these prophecies actually come from, and can we verify them? A major hurdle is that Vanga herself was illiterate and didn't write any of this down. What we think we know about her prophecies mostly comes from notes supposedly taken by her staff, followers, and journalists who talked to her. This second-hand way of passing things on automatically opens the door for misinterpretations, exaggerations, and maybe even things being made up over time. There's no direct, authenticated, contemporary record of Baba Vanga making super specific, dated predictions for 2025 in the way they're often presented now. A lot of what's attributed to her, especially the precise events and years, often seems to be interpreted after the fact or has become popular through internet stories and tabloids. The legend of Baba Vanga is also built on claims that she accurately predicted huge 20th century events. Her followers say she foresaw the Chernobyl disaster, Princess Diana's death, the sinking of the Russian submarine Kursk, the 9/11 terrorist attacks, and even the COVID-19 pandemic. But skeptics and researchers point out a critical issue. There's a lack of solid, contemporary proof that she made these specific predictions in detail before the events happened. Many of these claims seem to have popped up or gained traction after the fact, fitting her more general, vague statements to what had already occurred. For instance, that famous steel birds prophecy linked to 9/11s is a powerful image, but finding concrete, verifiable proof, she said it exactly like that before 2001, is tough. The often repeated claim that she had an 85% success rate also lacks any rigorous, independent checking. The prophecies about 2025, like a devastating European war or specific earthquakes, kind of follow this pattern. While they're reported everywhere, these claims are usually presented without access to original, verifiable sources directly from Vanga or her documented inner circle from that time. For example, while some reports from early 25 mentioned that a 7.7 magnitude earthquake in Myanmar and Thailand became a reality of her prophecy, this is connecting the dots after the fact. There's no evidence she specifically predicted those events for those places and dates. Other supposed predictions for 2025 attributed to her include a global economic meltdown. Some interpretations even stretch to include encounters with aliens, a Martian war, and perfecting telepathy around this time. These more out-there claims often circulate alongside the geopolitical warnings, sometimes making the core catastrophic predictions seem less credible, yet still adding to the overall mystery and alarm. So to sum it up, Baba Vanga's supposed visions for 2025 paint a grim picture that definitely taps into our current global anxieties. However, making the leap from these widely circulated claims to verifiable, specific prophecies made by Vanga herself for this exact year is a big one, and it's full of problems. The power of her legend, amplified by media and personal stories, is what's fueling the current unease. But a closer look reveals more about how belief and interpretation work than about a clearly documented set of 2025 predictions. The story often makes her prophecies sound much more concrete and widely accepted than the evidence really shows. The enigmatic quatrains, Nostradamus and the Spectre of 2025. Michel de Nostradamus, the 16th century French astrologer, physician, and seer, is probably the most famous name in the world of prophecy. His book, Les Prophecies, a collection of 942 poetic verses published in 1555, has been fascinating and confusing people for centuries. And just like with other big years marked by global tension, 2025 has become a hot topic for those trying to decode Nostradamus's cryptic writings. The main challenge with Nostradamus, and this is key to understanding him, is how incredibly vague his stuff is. His quatrains are written in a mix of 16th century French, Latin, Greek, and Occitan, using allegories, anagrams, and references to mythology. Crucially, they hardly ever include specific dates or clear, straightforward descriptions of future events. This built-in vagueness is why he's still such a mystery, and it's also why his writings can be, and have been, twisted to fit all sorts of historical events and potential future ones. For 2025, various interpretations of Nostradamus have popped up, painting a picture just as gloomy as the ones attributed to Baba Vanga. Modern readings suggest he predicted cruel wars in Europe. Some interpretations even point to the UK being dragged into a major conflict, facing threats from both inside and out. People often draw parallels to current situations, like the Russia-Ukraine war, to make these interpretations seem more plausible. Beyond just war, some interpreters claim Nostradamus warned of another deadly disease outbreak in 2025, a new pandemic like COVID-19. They cite phrases like, "A great pestilence from the past returns," "No enemy more deadly under the skies," from alleged quatrains. Given what we've all just been through, this understandably hits a raw nerve. Even more dramatically, certain readings of his work suggest a colossal asteroid, or a fireball from the cosmos, hitting or threatening Earth in 2025. This is often linked to verses talking about fire from the sky and massive destruction. Another recurring, though more out there interpretation, is the rise of an aquatic empire, possibly hinting at huge coastal floods from climate change or other disasters, leading to a new world order. Some also read his writings as predicting a global economic collapse in 2025, with countries going bankrupt and facing widespread financial hardship. Now it's absolutely vital to remember that these are interpretations by modern readers and commentators, not direct, explicit statements from Nostradamus about the year 2025. The original texts don't mention 2025 alongside these specific events. What happens is, people pick quatrains that seem to connect with current anxieties or events, and then fit them into a modern story. For instance, a quatrain mentioning the Garden of the World near the new city being seized and plunged into the tub, forced to drink waters poisoned by sulfur, has been interpreted by some as volcanic activity and flooding in Brazil, or more broadly, as devastating effects from climate change. Similarly, vague references to conflict are easily applied to current wars. Attributing predictions like a colossal asteroid or an aquatic empire specifically to 2025 relies completely on these modern interpretations. While NASA does keep an eye on objects near Earth and has identified asteroids that will pass by in 2025, none are currently considered a threat. Any link between Nostradamus and such specific astronomical events for this year is pure speculation. Fans often point to Nostradamus's supposed past hits, like predicting the French Revolution, the rise of Hitler, the World Wars, and even the moon landing, as proof of his powers. But skeptics argue that these two are mostly examples of fitting vague prophecies to events after they happened. The Hister reference, for example, is more likely a classical reference to the lower Danube River than a direct prediction of Adolf Hitler. So when we talk about Nostradamus's prophecies for 2025, we're largely talking about a modern trend of interpretation and application. His cryptic verses offer a rich playground for those looking for warnings and omens. The connections made to current events and the year 2025 show the enduring power of his mysterious writings and our human tendency to find patterns in chaos, rather than clear, unambiguous, and dated prophecies from the man himself. The idea that he predicted specific wars, diseases, or an asteroid for 2025 is a product of this interpretive lens. The modern mystics, Athos Salomé and Nicolas Aujula. It's not just the historical giants of prophecy stirring up anxiety about 2025. Today's wave of concern is also being fueled by contemporary seers who've grabbed a lot of media attention. Two of the most prominent are Athos Salomé, a Brazilian psychic known as the living Nostradamus, and Nicolas Aujula, a London-based clairvoyant and hypnotherapist. Their predictions often echo the darker themes we hear from Vanga and Nostradamus, adding to this narrative of a year filled with danger. Athos Salomé, who's 38, has made headlines with some pretty stark warnings for 2025. He's chimed in on the predictions of upcoming global conflict, saying World War III is on its way and that the worst is yet to come. One particularly chilling part of Salomé's forecast is his focus on artificial intelligence in future wars. He suggests the next major conflict won't just be fought by humans, but by machines too, raising huge concerns about AI and uncontrollable power and the rise of AI-driven cyber warfare. He's even said, this is not just a war of men, but of machines. Beyond war, Salomé has also talked about AI becoming more powerful than ever, new secrets about UFOs being discovered, digital currencies taking over physical money, and even a manufactured energy crisis. Some reports also mention his worries about quantum computing breaking, global digital security, and implantable chips becoming more popular. Salomé's reputation, like that of many modern seers, is partly built on claims that he's accurately predicted past events. Some media outlets credit him with foreseeing the COVID-19 pandemic, the death of Queen Elizabeth II, and even a Microsoft global outage. However, as with many such claims, solid verifiable proof that these predictions were made with specific details before the events happened, and weren't just general statements later matched to outcomes, is often hard to find. Media buzz and selective reporting of apparent hits play a big role in building these reputations, while misses or vague statements often get ignored. Nicolas Aujula, also 38, has a similarly gloomy outlook for 2025. He's predicted that World War III could kick off by the middle of the year. Aujula thinks this potential conflict could stem from a global lack of compassion and an increase in violence, driven by religious extremism and nationalism. His visions reportedly include horrific acts of human evil. Beyond global conflict, Aujula also sees environmental challenges like flooding and rising sea levels. But not all his visions are bad. He also suggests some potential positives like advances in healthcare, more equality in the workplace, and even a reconciliation between Prince William and Prince Harry. Like Salomé, Aujula's credibility is often tied to his supposed past successes. Some sources say he accurately predicted the COVID-19 pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement. And similarly, these claims face the same scrutiny about the specifics, timing, and independent verification of the original predictions versus matching them up after the fact. The prophecies of Salomé and Aujula for 2025, especially their warnings of war and societal crisis, feed directly into this broader story of impending doom. Their modern voices, often amplified by online media and social platforms, add a contemporary layer to the centuries-old anxieties reignited by interpretations of Vanga and Nostradamus. They speak in a language and through channels that are immediate and accessible, making their warnings feel particularly relevant to us today. However, that crucial caveat remains. The way these individuals are presented as having definitively predicted major recent events often lacks the rigorous, independent, and pre-event proof needed to move beyond claims amplified by media hype. Their dire warnings for 2025 definitely contribute to the global panic, but understanding how their reputations are built and their predictions spread is key to critically assessing their impact. The convergence, a shared nightmare or interpretive bias? One of the things really cranking up the global panic about 2025 is this idea of a convergence. It's the notion that these four different seers, Vanga, Nostradamus, Athos Salomé, and Nicolas Aujula, despite being from different times and using different methods, have all independently come up with strikingly similar, terrifying visions for this year. This narrative of shared visions of war, catastrophe, and massive upheaval is powerful. Why? Because if multiple, seemingly unconnected sources predict the same thing, it feels more real, more urgent, and a whole lot scarier. The media has definitely jumped on this alignment of forecasts. Headlines often shout about how these four seers have all issued ominous predictions for 2025. Warning of widespread turmoil, major military conflicts, and global upheaval. The Economic Times, for example, pointed out that psychics Vanga, Nostradamus, Athos Salomé, and Nicolas Aujula all believe a large-scale war will break out before the end of the year. Their shared vision of devastation is not only sparking fear, but also drawing attention to current global tensions. This idea of a chorus of prophetic voices all singing the same scary tune is a pretty compelling story. But hold on. We really need to take a closer look at this convergence idea. Is it truly a case of independent, specific, confirmed predictions all neatly lining up on the year 2025? Or is it more a reflection of how stories are built, our own biases in interpreting things, and the timeless appeal of certain scary archetypes? First off, as we've talked about, the prophecies from Vanga and Nostradamus, especially about specific events in 2025, lean heavily on modern interpretations of vague and undated statements. There's no definitive, original source from either seer that explicitly details World War III in Europe in 2025, or a colossal asteroid strike in 2025. These are labels and timelines slapped on later, either retrospectively or speculatively. So the convergence here is often between modern interpretations of old prophecies and the new predictions from today's seers. Secondly, themes like war, disease, natural disasters, and societal collapse aren't exactly new or unique to 2025 or to these specific seers. They're recurring themes throughout the history of prophecy and end-of-the-world stories. These are primal fears that hit us deeply, especially when times feel uncertain. Isn't it plausible that the similarities in their visions come from tapping into these universal anxieties rather than from a specific, shared glimpse of what 2025 holds? For example, predicting war or unrest is unfortunately a fairly safe bet in any given year, given the constant presence of conflict in human history. The 2025 part is often what's projected onto these general warnings. Thirdly, there's the element of picking and choosing what to highlight. Media narratives love strong, clear storylines. The idea of four seers unleash global panic with shared visions makes for a much juicier headline than various individuals offer predictions, some vague, some specific, some overlapping, and some contradictory about the coming year. The focus tends to be on the points where they overlap, especially the most dramatic ones, while differences or less sensational predictions might not get as much airtime. The modern seers, Athos Salomé and Nicolas Aujula, are also working in a media world where the pronouncements of Vanga and Nostradamus are already everywhere. While their own experiences and methods might be independent, the cultural background is soaked in these older prophecies. This doesn't automatically mean their predictions are just copies, but it does mean their warnings of war or eye-driven conflict in 2025 land in a context already primed by similar, albeit interpreted, warnings from the past. So while the feeling of a powerful convergence is undeniable and is a key driver of the current anxiety, it's important to ask whether this convergence is a documented fact of independently confirmed, highly specific predictions for 2025. Or is it more of a compelling story? The similarities might have more to do with the enduring nature of human fears, a vague nature of many prophecies allowing for broad interpretation, and the way these stories are framed and amplified, rather than some supernatural agreement on the precise horrors waiting for us in 2025. The convergence is powerful as a story, but its factual basis is a lot more complicated and less certain than often portrayed. Unleashing global panic, media, psychology, and the power of prophecy. These dire predictions for 2025 from Vanga, Nostradamus, Athos Salomé, and Nicolas Aujula aren't just interesting historical or cultural tidbits. They are, as we've been discussing, actively unleashing global panic. This panic isn't simple. It's a complicated mix, driven by how media works, our deep-seated psychological reactions, and the raw power that prophetic stories hold in uncertain times. The media, in all its forms, plays a huge role in blowing these prophecies and the resulting anxiety out of proportion. News outlets, websites, and social media have covered the 2025 predictions extensively, often using sensational headlines and focusing on the scariest bits. Articles frequently highlight the seers' supposed past successes, often without thorough fact-checking or mentioning how many times they were wrong, or how vague many successful prophecies actually were. This gives their current warnings an air of credibility and urgency, making them seem more powerful and believable to a lot of people. The constant repetition of these dire forecasts across different channels creates an echo chamber, where just the sheer volume of talk can make the threats feel more real and closer. Digital media, especially, allows this kind of information to spread like wildfire, often without the usual checks and balances of traditional journalism. We even saw a recent example where predictions by a Japanese manga artist for a July 2025 disaster, likened to Vanga, reportedly caused a big drop in travel bookings to Japan. That shows the real-world economic impact of these prophetic anxieties when they get amplified. Psychologically, we humans are wired to pay attention to potential threats. In a world already feeling unstable, with wars, climate change, shaky economies, prophecies of doom tap right into anxieties we already have. They provide a story, however frightening, for understanding them. This is sometimes called confirmation bias, where we're more likely to notice and remember information that confirms what we already fear or believe. If you're already worried about a new world war, a prophecy foretelling it can feel like a validation of those fears. The appeal to authority also comes into play. Figures like Nostradamus and Vanga have legendary status. Their names alone carry a certain mystique, even if the specific 2025 predictions are just interpretations. Being associated with these famous seers gives them weight. Modern seers, by being called the new Nostradamus, or by building a media presence, can also tap into this. Then there's the whole fate versus free will idea, which is tangled up with prophecy. The thought that the future is already decided can be both terrifying and weirdly comforting. For some, it takes away responsibility. For others, it creates a sense of powerlessness. The debate itself, are these prophecies real? Can we change the future? Keeps people engaged and keeps the topic alive. Current global tensions are a massive catalyst here. When headlines are already full of news about ongoing conflicts, like the Russia-Ukraine war or tensions between major powers, prophecies of a coming World War III seem less like fantasy and more like a possible extension of what's already happening. Similarly, as extreme weather becomes more common, predictions of natural disasters gain a frightening realism. The prophecies aren't creating fear from nothing. They're pouring gasoline on existing fires of worry. The psychological impact is real. We hear about increased anxiety among some people, with individuals talking about prepping for disaster, while others just dismiss the prophecies as superstition. This division itself creates debate and discussion, embedding the prophecies even further into our cultural conversation. The fear might not be universal, but the awareness and the discussion around these 2025 predictions are widespread. It just goes to show how powerfully these kinds of narratives can grab public attention and stir up emotions on a massive scale, especially when amplified by our 24/7 global media. The great debate, skepticism versus belief. These alarming prophecies for 2025 have, not surprisingly, kicked off a passionate global debate, pitting deeply held beliefs against staunch skepticism. This isn't anything new. Prophecies have always divided people, but the feeling that warnings from 4 prominent seers are converging on this specific year, all amplified by modern media, has really turned up the heat on this discussion, making it a big feature of our current cultural moment. On one side, you have people who take these prophecies very seriously. They see them as genuine warnings from individuals who have some kind of extraordinary foresight. For believers, the supposed track records of seers like Baba Vanga and Nostradamus in predicting past major events are compelling proof of their abilities. The fact that multiple seers seem to be pointing to similar catastrophic events in 2025 strengthens their conviction, suggesting it's more likely these things will actually happen. Current global instability, ongoing wars, political tensions, environmental worries only adds to this belief, as the prophecies seem to reflect the anxieties and potential paths of real-world events. For some, these warnings might lead to action, from personal disaster prepping to calls for societal change or spiritual soul-searching. The emotional impact of these predictions can be huge, leading to genuine fear and a hunt for meaning or guidance. Then, on the other side of the ring, are the skeptics. They approach these prophecies with a critical eye, questioning their validity, where they came from, and how they're being interpreted. Skeptics often point out how vague and ambiguous many prophecies are, especially those from historical figures like Nostradamus. His quatrains, as we've discussed, are so cryptic they can be twisted to fit countless events after they happen. This after-the-fact reasoning, or retrofitting, is a common criticism. A prophecy only seems incredibly accurate because interpreters have cleverly matched its vague language to something that already occurred. Skeptics also highlight the lack of solid, verifiable, contemporary evidence for many of the most spectacular claims made about seers. For instance, while Baba Vanga is credited with predicting 9/11s or COVID-19, documented proof that she made these specific predictions with clear details before the events is often missing or relies on personal stories and second-hand accounts. The prophecies of modern seers like Athos Salomé and Nicolas Aujula face similar scrutiny when it comes to pre-event proof of their specific, successful predictions versus media hype around selectively reported hits. Furthermore, critics argue that many dire prophecies just play on common human fears, war, death, disaster, making them resonate through the ages but not necessarily predictive of specific future events. Skeptics might see the convergence of prophecies for 2025 not as proof they're real, but as a reflection of shared cultural anxieties being channeled through similar prophetic archetypes, or as a result of media narratives cherry-picking similarities. A key part of the skeptical view is the need to separate the myths and cultural impact of these seers from the actual evidence for their predictive accuracy. While the stories around Nostradamus or Baba Vanga are powerful and culturally significant, that doesn't automatically mean their prophetic abilities are factually or scientifically sound. The debate also touches on psychological biases, like confirmation bias and the Barnum effect. Even this exploration acknowledges the need for caution, to distinguish between the myth and the lack of hard evidence to avoid misleading anyone. That balance is vital. While the allure of prophecy is strong, especially in uncertain times, a critical approach means questioning sources, demanding evidence, and understanding the psychological and cultural factors that contribute to both belief and the creation of such widespread panic. The debate isn't just about whether the 2025 prophecies will come true, but also about how we as a society process information, give meaning to ambiguous predictions, and react to stories of impending doom. So what do you think about these 2025 prophecies? Do you believe there's genuine reason to be concerned? Or is this more about mass anxiety stirred up by interpretation and the media? We really want to hear your opinions and insights, so drop them in the comments below. We read them all, and this is a conversation that definitely needs to happen. And if you find this kind of exploration into prophecies, global reactions, and our search for meaning in uncertain times compelling, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. We dig into the most intriguing mysteries and pressing questions of our world, and you won't want to miss what's next. Your support helps us keep bringing these kinds of in-depth reports to you. Navigating the unwritten future, beyond the predictions. All this intense focus on the 2025 prophecies from Vanga, Nostradamus, Athos Salomé, and Nicolas Aujula brings up bigger questions. Questions that go beyond just trying to prove or disprove their specific claims. It makes us think about how we, as a society, interpret and react to warnings of potential disaster, and what these reactions tell us about where our collective heads are at right now. At their heart, these prophecies, whether you believe them or not, have become a powerful symbol of the deep uncertainties that define our times. In a world wrestling with complicated geopolitical shifts, super-fast technological changes, a worsening climate crisis, and ongoing economic anxieties, these dark forecasts act like a mirror, reflecting and magnifying our deepest fears. They offer a story, however unsettling, that people can use to project their worries about a future that feels increasingly unpredictable and, for some, totally out of control. The prophecies provide a kind of dark map for navigating a world that already feels full of dangers. But they're more than just symbols. These predictions are also powerful sparks for debate and soul-searching. They force conversations about really fundamental philosophical questions. Is our future set in stone? Or do we have the free will to change our path? What even is prophecy? A real glimpse into the inevitable, a calculated way to exploit fear, or a complex psychological thing? The discussions kicked off by these 2025 warnings touch on how reliable information is, the influence of media, the dangers of mass panic, and what responsibility individuals and societies have when faced with forecasts of widespread disaster. Do we just dismiss them, prepare for the worst, or try to find rational, evidence-based solutions to the actual challenges our world faces, regardless of any prophetic claims? The cultural impact of all this is undeniable. Our fascination with seers and their visions isn't new. It speaks to a timeless human need for meaning, certainty, and guidance, especially when things are in crisis or big transitions are happening. The stories of these four seers and their supposed shared visions for 2025 have become part of the global conversation, shaping, at least for some, how they see the immediate future and their own role in unfolding world events. Whether you believe the literal truth of the prophecies or not, their ability to grab attention, stir up strong emotions, and generate widespread discussion is a testament to their cultural power. This isn't just about fear. It's also about how humans respond to what we perceive as existential threats. The narratives around 2025 can, oddly enough, also inspire a desire for connection, for understanding, and for taking action. While some might just give in to a fatalistic view, others might be motivated to learn more, to join in discussions, or even to look for ways to lessen the real-world problems that the prophecies seem to echo. Things like conflict, environmental damage, or social division. Ultimately, navigating the unwritten future takes more than just reacting to predictions. It calls for critical thinking, a smart understanding of how information spreads, and a focus on tackling the real challenges we face with reason and collective effort. The prophecies for 2025 serve as a stark reminder of our anxieties, but the future itself is still a blank canvas, influenced far more by human choices and actions than by cryptic verses or sensational forecasts. The question isn't just whether the prophecies are true, but how we choose to respond to the climate of fear and uncertainty they represent, and how we work towards a future we collectively want, rather than one we collectively dread. So here we are in 2025, at a fascinating, if pretty unsettling point. The supposed prophecies of Vanga, Nostradamus, Athos Salomé, and Nicolas Aujula have definitely cast a long, dark shadow over the year, stirring up a potent mix of fear, speculation, and intense global discussion. Their collective visions, as they're interpreted and amplified, paint a disturbing picture of war, catastrophe, and society coming apart at the seams, tapping into the deepest anxieties of a world already dealing with a lot of instability. Throughout this journey, we've looked at where these predictions came from Nostradamus's mysterious quatrains and Vanga's orally passed down legacy, to the modern warnings of Salomé and Aujula. We've seen how the vagueness in many of these prophecies leaves tons of room for interpretation, allowing them to be shaped to fit current events and fears. And we can't ignore the huge role the media plays in crafting the narrative, sometimes choosing sensationalism over a more careful look. That idea of a convergence of these prophecies, while a powerful story fueling the panic, really needs a closer look. Is it a true alignment of independently verified, specific predictions for 2025, or more of a constructed narrative, born from recurring apocalyptic themes and cherry-picking similarities? The evidence seems to suggest the latter often plays a bigger role than many realize. It's so important to say again that while the cultural impact of these seers is significant, the verifiable, hard evidence for their specific, detailed predictions for 2025, made clearly before any potential corresponding events, is often hard to find. Claims of past accuracy frequently rely on matching things up after the fact and interpreting vague statements. So is global panic justified? Is doom inevitable? The prophecies themselves, especially when you strip away later interpretations and unsupported claims, don't offer any definitive, evidence-backed answers. What is undeniable is the psychological impact. In an age of anxiety, these stories of impending doom hit hard, reflecting our uncertainties and giving us a place to focus our fears. Ultimately, the future isn't a script written by seers from long ago or today. It's shaped by present-day realities, human decisions, and our collective actions. While the 2025 prophecies act as a stark mirror to our times, reflecting our anxieties and our capacity for both belief and skepticism, they shouldn't paralyze us with fear. Instead, maybe they can be a trigger for critical thinking, for a deeper look at the information we consume, and for a renewed focus on tackling the very real challenges and complexities of our world with courage, reason, and a commitment to shaping a future less terrifying than the one foretold. The power to define 2025 and the years beyond doesn't rest in ancient texts or modern clairvoyance, but within ourselves,